Think about the last time someone asked you how you were doing. You smiled. You said fine, maybe great, and you meant none of it. Not because you were lying exactly, but because the truth felt too heavy to hand to just anyone. So you folded it up quietly, tucked it somewhere deep inside yourself, and kept moving like nothing was sitting on your chest. Here's why that matters in your actual life right now. People who operate this way are not cold, broken, or disconnected. They are often the most emotionally sophisticated, quietly perceptive people in any room. And understanding the psychology behind this pattern could fundamentally shift how you see yourself. Why certain relationships never seem to go deep enough no matter how much time you invest, and why you sometimes feel lonelier in a crowd of people who love you than you do completely alone. If you have ever felt like you were performing a version of yourself that doesn't quite match what's really happening on the inside, if warmth comes easily to you but trust feels like handing someone a weapon, this one is for you. Most people get this completely wrong. They look at someone who smiles easily, laughs at the right moments, remembers your birthday, says all the warm and generous things, and they think, that person is open. That person is doing fine. They walk away feeling like they know someone they've never actually touched. And then, when that person later admits they were quietly struggling, or that they never really trusted anyone in that room, the reaction is almost always the same. But you seem so happy. You never gave any indication. I had absolutely no idea. Society has a specific vocabulary for this kind of person. They say private. They say guarded. Sometimes they say closed off, or emotionally unavailable, or hard to read. And all of those labels carry a quiet judgment stitched inside them. Like something in this person didn't develop correctly. Like openness is the finish line, and anything short of it is evidence that something went wrong somewhere. Like the goal of being human is to be an open book, and this person is failing at the assignment. That framing is not just incomplete. For a lot of people, it has done real damage, made them feel like a defect in a world that rewards emotional performance and mistakes disclosure for depth. What we're actually talking about is a precise psychological profile. People who are socially warm but internally sealed. People who can move through a full room with complete ease, hold genuine eye contact, make others feel genuinely seen and comfortable, and still drive home carrying everything alone, with the radio off, in total silence. People whose smile is entirely real and whose distance is also entirely real, and somehow both of those truths exist simultaneously without contradiction. This is not emotional unavailability in the way it gets misdiagnosed in pop psychology. It is not shyness wearing a mask. It is not social anxiety performing confidence. It is something much more specific, a pattern with a real psychological architecture underneath it, one that most people have never had explained to them in a way that actually makes sense. Researchers in attachment theory, the field originally developed by British psychiatrist John Bowlby in the mid-20th century and expanded through decades of longitudinal studies, identified what they call dismissive avoidant attachment. But the version we are talking about is not the cold, withdrawn, disconnected stereotype most people picture. It is the adapted, high-functioning version, the one where a person learned during a critical window of their development that warmth was relatively safe to offer, but vulnerability was not. That showing up was acceptable. That being seen all the way through was a risk with unpredictable outcomes. Studies from the University of California on emotional regulation and social behavior found something that sounds almost contradictory at first. People who carry this pattern often show genuine oxytocin responses in social settings, meaning they actually feel warmth, they actually enjoy connection, the pleasure is real. But their amygdala, the brain's core threat detection structure, stays on low-grade, almost imperceptible alert whenever interactions move toward emotional intimacy. Two systems running at the same time. Warmth in one channel, vigilance in another. The smile is not a performance. The guardedness is not a performance. They are both happening simultaneously inside the same person, in separate regions of the same nervous system. What that means in plain human terms is this. The version of them you see is not fake. And the wall you cannot find is also not fake. Both are real, and the person behind both of them is not confused or contradicted. They are running an internal system that, at some point in their history, made complete and total sense. It always traces back somewhere early. And it is not always a dramatic story. Sometimes there is no single event to point to. Sometimes it is not crisis, or obvious loss, or visible harm. Sometimes it is quieter and more erosive than that. A home where feelings were redirected instead of received. A parent who was physically present but emotionally checked out. There in the room but not really available to be found. A childhood where being visibly upset made the adults around you uncomfortable or impatient, so you learned to process your inner world somewhere private, somewhere they would not have to manage it. Maybe you trusted someone completely once, and they carried that trust straight to someone else. Maybe you opened up during a moment of real pain and the response you got, not cruel, just insufficient, just hollow, taught you something permanent about what certain rooms can hold. The nervous system is a learning machine. It does not have opinions. It takes notes. And when it registers, repeatedly and across enough years, that emotional openness produces results that range from unpredictable to quietly painful. Dismissal, discomfort, distance, the sensation of being too much. It does exactly what any intelligent adaptive system does. It builds a layer. It keeps the social self fully operational and the inner world carefully managed. This is not pathology. This is precision adaptation built specifically for the environment that shaped it. It is worth saying this directly, without softening it into a lesson. This is not a character flaw. It is not emotional immaturity. It is not evidence of damage that needs to be undone before a person can be whole. And it is not superior to any other way of moving through the world either. People who trust openly and extend warmth without a long vetting process carry their own costs. They move through life with more ease in some directions and more wreckage in others. Neither pattern is the correct one. Psychology does not issue rankings for how human beings should manage the distance between themselves and other people. Different nervous systems, shaped by different environments, arrived at different solutions to the same universal question. How much of yourself is actually safe to give, and to whom, and under what conditions? Both answers are legitimate. Neither is the whole truth. Here is the layer most people never reach. The counterintuitive part. The part that does not get said enough. People who smile on the outside but trust no one on the inside are frequently, not always but frequently, some of the most perceptive readers of other human beings you will ever encounter. Because they never fully deactivated their internal monitoring system, they became careful students of how people actually behave when they think no one is paying close attention. They learn to track the gap between what someone says and what their body is doing while they say it. They notice when energy shifts in a room before the conversation catches up to it. They can sense when someone's generosity has a quiet motive attached to it before that motive ever makes itself visible. They know the difference between someone who genuinely wants to know how you're doing and someone who is just filling silence. That is not a small skill. In a world full of people who mistake proximity for trust, volume for intimacy, and consistency for safety, the ability to actually see other people clearly without the distortion of need or unchecked optimism is genuinely rare. The cost of developing it is not nothing. It can make genuine closeness feel like crossing a very long bridge in the dark, alone, with no guarantee anything is on the other side. But the perception itself is real. It was not given. It was earned through years of paying close attention when the stakes were personal. If you recognize yourself anywhere in this, here is what is simply, plainly true. You are not broken. You are not incapable of love or trust or real connection. You built a system that protected you when protection was the most intelligent response available. That system did its job. The fact that it kept running long after the original conditions changed is not a character failure. It is exactly how nervous systems function. They do not automatically update when the environment shifts. They continue running the last successful program until something gives them consistent, accumulated evidence that a different approach is survivable. Your experience makes complete sense. The version of you that learned to keep the inside quiet while keeping the outside warm was not making a mistake. You were solving a real problem with the tools and the data you had at the time. That deserves recognition, not apology. If you want to create a little more room inside that pattern, not erase it, not force yourself into a different personality, but just loosen it slightly. Here is one thing that actually works. Stop asking yourself whether someone deserves your trust before any evidence exists one way or the other. Instead, give one small, low-stakes, genuinely true piece of information about how you are actually doing. Not your whole interior world, not the heavy thing, just one real sentence. And then do not listen to what they say in response. Watch what they do with it over the next few days. Your nervous system runs on evidence, not reassurance, and small moments of not being hurt when you fully expect it to be. Those accumulate. They rewrite the data, quietly, slowly, in a direction that does not ask you to become someone you are not. If this reached something real in you, there is more worth understanding about the way you are actually wired. The patterns we build to protect ourselves never operate in isolation. They shape who we draw toward us, what we do when love actually shows up, and what happens inside us when success gets close enough to touch. That architecture goes deeper than most people ever look. And understanding it, really understanding it not just intellectually but in a way that lands in the body, is the kind of thing that quietly changes the direction everything else moves in.